Mark Carney's pipeline flip-flop is making waves again, and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith isn't letting it slide. We'll break down her criticism and look at how Carney's story keeps changing depending on where he's speaking and who he's speaking to. Alberta's Energy Minister Brian Jean is also speaking out, this time against the federal emissions cap, which he warns could devastate Alberta and the country's economy. Despite the Liberal Party having a new leader, he warns that it's the same old story. And despite getting less federal funding than other provinces, Alberta is leading the country in new home construction. My name's Isaac Lamoureux, and I'll cover all of these stories on the shortened holiday version of the Alberta Roundup today. Let's hop into that first story now. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is taking shots at Liberal Leader Mark Carney for continuing to flip-flop on Canada's energy future and for making more vague, non-committal responses on key issues. She posted to X calling him out, saying, quote, "So it would appear Mark Carney is now just fine with Canada continuing to be 100% reliant on the United States to purchase all of our oil and gas and to purchase all of the fuel used by Ontario and Quebec from the US through Line 5. Smith's comments followed Carney's appearance on the French-language talk show Tout le monde en parle, where he delivered an ambiguous statement on the future of pipelines in Canada. Here's what he had to say.
Il faut choisir quelques projets, quelques grands projets, pas nécessairement des pipelines, mais peut-être des pipelines. On verra.
In response, Smith said, quote, "This is absurd, irrational, and anti-Canadian in every respect. It's also the exact opposite of what he promised while in Alberta a couple of weeks ago. Does he want Canada to be strong, prosperous, and independent or not?" True North reported how Carney spent most of the interview defending his record. The Liberal leader justified his former company Brookfield Asset Management's investments in offshore tax havens and insisted that he led Canada through the 2008 financial recession despite former Prime Minister Stephen Harper crediting his former finance minister, the late Jim Flaherty. Smith previously attacked Carney for telling her in person that he would oppose Bill C-69, only to say later that he would not repeal the No More Pipelines bill. Carney made a similar flip-flop with the oil and gas cap, telling Smith one day that he opposed an oil and gas production cap, only to express support for it the very next day in Ottawa. Smith said, quote, "This has been the same story for the last 10 years. Liberals come to Alberta, smile for the cameras, tell everyone how much they're going to work with Alberta and support the energy sector. Then they leave, go home, and proceed to do everything in their power to roadblock and scare away investment from the energy sector." Carney has also previously faced backlash for tailoring his messaging to different audiences, offering conflicting views on Canada's pipeline future depending on whether he was speaking in English or French. On the other hand, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has pledged to repeal Bill C-69 if elected Prime Minister, aiming to remove barriers to building major energy projects in Canada. Here's an exchange between Poilievre and Carney in 2021, where he called out the Liberal leaders' hypocrisy on pipelines at a committee hearing.
Do you support the Prime Minister's decision to veto the Northern Gateway pipeline, Mr. Carney?
I understand the veto of the Northern Gateway pipeline.
Do you support it?
Given both environmental and commercial reasons.
Do you support it?
I think it is sensible. I wasn't involved in the decision, but I think it was the right decision.
And yet your company has invested billions of dollars in oil companies in both Brazil and the UAE to buy pipelines. You bought billions of dollars of pipelines as a company in the last 5 years. Do you support those investments?
Mr. Poilievre, there is a global energy system, and one of the issues, I'm trying to explain a bit of how the economy works. One of the
Thank you so much.
It may help. One of the issues for this committee in thinking about a sustainable transition
Do you support it?
Where is Canada's role in those as energy transitions from fossil fuels to renewables? And in different jurisdictions, into different geography, it matters. It matters,
Okay.
and this is a fundamental point.
Yeah.
No, I'm
So-
sorry. This is a fundamental. You're
so
finally
I'm sorry.
you're finally
exceeded
getting
the
to
time.
a point
You've
that
exceeded the
is
time.
relevant to this committee's inquiry.
What you're saying
what
is you
is the
oppose
transition
pipelines in
pathway?
Canada, but you support them in the UAE and in Brazil. That's what
There
you've
are
actually said.
There are specific.
That's your double
pipelines.
standard.
Commenting recently on Carney's shifting promises, Poilievre told voters to doubt the sincerity of Carney's commitments. Poilievre said, quote, "Don't believe him in any language." Alberta Minister of Energy and Minerals Brian Jean called out the federal government for continuing with pursuing an emissions cap. In a post to X, he called the cap a ticking time bomb that would explode Alberta's economy and shatter the country's economy. Despite Carney trying to present himself as a new prime minister who just got here, Jean said that, despite the new ringleader, it was the same cast of characters, a cast he said was intent to shut down the energy sector. Take a listen of what Jean had to say.
The federal government has come out with new details on its emission cap, and let me tell you, it's clearly a ticking time bomb set to explode Alberta's economy and shatter our country's prosperity. Despite Justin Trudeau and his radical environment minister's best efforts to brand these regulations positively, this is a job-crushing production cap that will hurt families, hurt businesses, and hurt Canada's economy. Make no mistake, their intention is another step towards shutting down our energy industry, and it's a violation of Canada's Constitution. Section 92A clearly grants provinces exclusive authority over the development of non-renewable resources. Yet this cap demands a reduction of 1 million barrels a day by 2030. This out-of-touch Prime Minister cannot ignore Canada's Constitution, and we are ready to take our fight to the courts. The evidence of this job and prosperity-crushing cap is undeniable. 3 independent firms have shown that this regulation would strike Canada's economy hard, eliminating over 150,000 jobs and draining $14 billion annually from our economy. That's $14 billion that won't be going towards new schools, hospitals, bridges, and roads, all for a reckless scheme that will not reduce global emissions. Tweaks won't work. This cap must be scrapped. We won't stand by as the federal government jeopardizes our prosperity, violates our Constitution, and downgrades our standard of living with its extreme agenda.
The Alberta government celebrated leading Canada in housing starts between January and March 2025. The province said that despite accounting for only 13% of the country's population, it built more than 25% of all housing starts so far this year. Alberta, despite receiving far less housing dollars than BC and Ontario, saw an increase in housing starts of 18%, while BC saw a 38% decrease and Ontario saw a 30% decrease compared to last year. Alberta's Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services, Jason Nixon, said, quote, "After a record-breaking 2024, today's housing starts numbers are just more proof that Alberta's plan to build homes is working." Last year, the province launched the Stop Housing Delays online portal for developers to emphasize fast and efficient residential construction. The Alberta government compared the portal to a, quote, snitch line on red tape. The province also updated the provincial building code and said it continues to attract investment by having the lowest overall taxes in Canada and by having no provincial sales tax and the lowest corporate tax rate. The province's housing starts between January and March 2025, compared to between January and March 2024, grew to 11,470 from 9,744. The biggest cities, Calgary and Edmonton, saw 16 and 17% increases in housing starts respectively. The province said it will support $9 billion in investments into affordable housing to support 25,000 additional low-income households by 2031. That wraps up this week's short show. My name's Isaac Lamoureux, your host of the Alberta Roundup. Have a great Easter weekend. Thank you, and God bless.